Okay, welcome to part 2 of the wood graining video. I'm going to now apply the final stain to the surface to try and blend everything together. I'm not actually sure how this was done previously by the other modeler, Hammered, but I've done some experimenting, and so far this seems to work best for me. I put the stain on. I just smear it right on the fuselage. I just take a paper towel and I just rub it around. And then I'll take the same brush that I use for the dry brushing and I do this. And anywhere where I see a buildup, I'll just go over it like that. And instead of rubbing it off, which seems to just take all the stain off without coloring the... Well, it seems if I try and wipe it off, that it just wipes all the color off and I'm not left with anything on there at all. So this seems to be working for me. I don't know if you can notice the change in the shade or not, but it is darkening it a bit, so that is looking pretty good. I like that. See, there's where you gotta... So that's one coat, and yeah, you can see that it's definitely a little darker. I'm gonna let that dry. Maybe buff it a little with a paper towel here, just to get anything that's freestanding off. Yeah, that seems to do it. Yeah, quite happy with that. That's looking pretty good. I'll just keep going and do the rest of it. Okay, I'm pretty much done at least, a bit of a spot here still. Pretty much done at least one coat, and I gotta say, I'm really happy with the way this is turning out. And just for fun, I've taken my documentation that I had printed out here and cut it out. Just lay that on there for comparison, and you got to be happy with that. That's pretty close. So I'm thrilled with that. I'm quite surprised because the stain color at first I thought was going to be way too dark. It's golden oak, and if you put some on your finger there, you can see it's quite dark. It's very brown, almost a bit of a green tinge to it, but it seems to do the trick. So another thing, if you might notice, is what the stain really did is accentuate the panel lines. Right up to the camera there, you can sort of see where those panel lines are. So I'm really happy with that. Right here there's a bit of a smudge of stain still. I think it might be a bit too much, so just lightly buff that out with a paper towel. That's alright. So That side seems to be a little darker than this side. I might put one more light coat on here. But I'll let that dry for a couple hours before I do that. Yeah, overall I'm thrilled with the way this is working out. It's hard to believe that it's not wood. That's great. So I'll let that dry. I'll decide if I want to put any more stain on it for a final touch-up, and then I'll put on a couple of coats of clear to seal it, and then paint the trim, and I'll get started on the back end with the tail feathers. Thanks for watching. Just had a bit of a brainstorm that I wish I have had before I started putting the stain on. If you look at some close-up shots of an albatross, you'll see along the panel lines nail heads, because the plywood was all nailed to the formers underneath. So I thought I was going to just use an India ink pen and put them on that way. But then I thought, what if I poked little holes with a pin and then stained? The stain will go into the holes, and then that would be my nails. So I did a test piece, and it actually came out quite good. So what I've done is I've taken a Dubro T-pin, I've cut the T part off, and I've chucked it up in this little pin vise here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a ruler, just so that I can guide it, and I'm going to poke a whole bunch of little holes. They're spaced quite close on the real thing. I think if I space them about 5 millimeters, that would probably look pretty good. So here we go, poking holes in my covering. Obviously they don't have to be deep. Just want to pierce the outside skin. Like that. And then I'll flip around and do it on the other part of the panel as well. This time, to make it look a little fancier, I'll alternate so the holes don't line up. They're sort of staggered and form like a zigzag pattern. Actually, almost sort of wing it here. That. So I don't think they show up too well yet, but I'm pretty sure once I get the stain in there, just rub it in real quick and then rub it right off and then let it dry. I think that's going to come out quite nice. Alright, I'm going to give this a real quick application just to see how this turns out. A little bit of stain right in there. Oh yeah. Yep. So, I don't know if you can see that or not. But right here we got some nice holes with the stain in it. So that looks perfect. So I'm going to do that over the entire fuselage, and I think that's going to give me quite a nice effect. As I say, this would have been something I wish I had thought of before I started the whole staining process, because now I've got to make sure I blend it all in there nicely. Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. That's going to look good. Don't know how it shows up on the camera there, but it looks good in real life. Excellent. So here's the final product. I think it came out quite well. I'll zoom in on some of the nail holes and hopefully see how they came out. I think once I get the trim on here, it's going to look pretty good.